I don't know myself well enough to answer the question.
Alright, welcome back to another day in April. I'm here with my buddy Koah, and we're gonna play the Book of Questions game. Koah, give me a number from 1 to 300.
146.
Does the fact that you've never done something before increase or decrease its appeal to you?
You ever heard of the definition of insanity? You know, doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. I think that consuming the same information over and over again is pretty much the same thing, and it's just insane at a certain point. It becomes pathological. And don't get me wrong, there's certain necessities to repeating information. Like if you don't understand a certain problem, you do the same problem over and over and over again. But it's slightly different, at least every time, because then you can, find a new way of solving the problem. But if you were to do like 2 plus 2, and then 2 plus 2 again and again and again and again, even if you didn't understand addition, you would at least understand what the answer was, and then you'd be able to repeat the answer over and over, right? So in certain aspects, doing the exact same thing over and over again is not helpful. However, I'm of two minds on that. If you watch you ever seen a Hallmark movie? They're all just like atrocious, and they're all the exact same plot every single time. The majority of mass media nowadays is just homogenous. It's the same thing over and over and over again. And of course, the specifics change, right? Like maybe it's a guy, maybe it's a girl, maybe the jokes are different, maybe the ratings just slightly higher or lower. Any sort of cartoon thing where there's this lovable pet that can somehow communicate with the main cast, and there is a father figure, a mother figure, 2 or 3 children. It's like the exact same. Like you can describe so many TV shows with that. Everything, even though it is different, it all feels the same nowadays. I'd say that reduces the appeal, at least to me. I think that there's so much great media and so many great things in the world to experience, where of course you can't jump from small events to something completely large and something completely esoteric. Like if you're afraid of snakes, you don't just jump from looking at a snake on a picture to fighting with a giant venomous snake. You have stages, right? It's exposure therapy, same thing with PTSD, right? You can stage up to get to a certain point where you learn over time. But when you're watching the same thing, or when you're consuming the same thing, or when you're doing the same thing over and over again, and you're expecting stuff to change, and it really doesn't, it's not interesting to anybody. People wonder why people have ADHD, and of course there's neurological issues, and medications can help certain people, and stimulant medications and whatnot. However, ADHD itself can also be quite easily explained in a lot of the population by you're giving kids who require a lot of high stimulus information that is completely novel the same thing over and over and over again, and by somebody who's not interested in it, by a system that doesn't really care about them, and over and over and over. And you're expecting them to change. You're expecting them to take the medication, or them to change whatever sort of habits they need to so that they can fit society. And society really isn't about fitting humans anymore. It's just about, I don't know what I'm talking about, man. I'm just sort of I'm just tired.
It's okay.
So I just gave a couple-minute rant that was about a lot of stuff that wasn't necessarily related to the question, because I'm very tired, admittedly. But I don't know, maybe it's the fact that I don't know myself well enough to answer the question, or maybe I know myself too well to answer the question. It's a personal question, but for some reason I can't help but relate it to society.
Do you dislike answering personal questions or questions that relate specifically to you?
But I don't see a point. We ask a lot of questions all the time about specifics, and I had a conversation earlier today with somebody who mentioned specifics, and it was the specifics of the story that was just unnecessary, right? Details that you just didn't need to know. And of course you can tell allegories and stories that represent a larger whole, and those are important. I think stories that we tell that are generalizable, to teach a lesson or to provide humor or to do something for the world, I think it's kind of nice. But I don't know, I just don't see a point of talking about myself or talking about yourself when you could be, sure, when we learn something and we can tell a story and maybe somebody can draw significance from it, or maybe we can try to give them significance through the story, but just telling it to tell it, I just feel like we're just filling ourselves up with mindless garbage all the time. And why don't we at least try to answer questions in ways that aren't necessarily about ourselves, because who really cares about the general significance of a conversation? Me or you or one person. They care about, they laughed, right? And I think that's really beautiful, right? I think it's really beautiful that anybody can derive significance from anything. And I just did the same thing again, didn't I? Huh. Interesting.